everybody, welcome. Hey everybody, welcome to my first true side of crime video. I'm super excited to be doing this. I know I've talked about it before, it just never really worked out. But finally the stars have aligned and here we are. Today we're going to cover the Evelyn Hernandez case. Super excited about that. Anybody who listens to my podcast knows that I did the Evelyn Hernandez case in podcast form. I want to start doing my shorter episodes in video form. It's been something I've been kind of spitballing around, and I finally just decided to do it. Why not? In 2002, Evelyn Hernandez was a 24-year-old mom to a 5-year-old boy named Alexis. She was about to have her second son, who she was naming Fernando. In the later months of that year, her story is going to seem really familiar to some of us because there's another case that sounds a lot like this, one that got a lot more attention. So we'll talk about that later. Let's talk a little bit about Evelyn as a younger person. Evelyn was born in El Salvador on February 23rd of 1978. There's not a lot known about her childhood in El Salvador or here. What we know is when Evelyn was a kid, El Salvador was in the midst of war. And so her mom moved to America to kind of set up a life for them. Later on, Evelyn moved to America with her mom when she was 14 years old. We know she enrolled in school and went to a center where she studied English as a second language. Evelyn was a really good student, and one of the volunteers at the center that Evelyn went to said that she developed a love for plays. She loved to act, so she was in a lot of musicals at the center also. She was really focused, really driven. She got really good grades, did well in school, excelled at the center. She was just an all-around good kid. At 17, Evelyn did get pregnant with her oldest son. We don't know a lot about his father. I couldn't even find his name. All I could find was that he was in the armed forces. It doesn't even actually give a branch. Alexis was born on November 6th of 1990. Alexis's dad was not in his life, which left Evelyn as a single mom as a teenager, which can be really hard. Still, she managed to graduate from high school and she worked multiple jobs just to take care of her son. Now, sometime after Alexis was born, Evelyn met a man named Herman Aguilera. Herman would become a limo driver and an airport mechanic. Coming out of your teenage years, having a baby and meeting a man who seems to have his life together, who's working 2 jobs and is there for you, I am absolutely sure made Evelyn extremely happy. She thought she found somebody that she could rely on. In 2001, when Evelyn became pregnant, she was so excited. You've been dating somebody for years, they're incorporated into your family, you find out you're pregnant with their child. That's exciting. You can expand your little family. When Evelyn told Herman she was pregnant, though, she did not get the response she thought she would. Herman then told her that he was married. That had to have been a super hard blow. Her dreams of having this family and this life had to have been shattered at that point. But Evelyn didn't care. She was going to take care of her baby by herself if she had to. She did it once, so she could do it again. She remained her caring, happy, positive self. I know that it had to be hard for her because being pregnant is already emotional. You find out that your boyfriend, who you think that you're going to have this life with, is actually married and has been married this entire time. But she embraced the next chapter of her life of being the mom to two little amazing boys. I'm sure that this was a weird time. I know Herman started pulling away from her and Alexis, and he didn't want anything to do with this baby. He did not want a baby. I can't find anywhere that says for sure that he wanted her to get rid of the baby, but I'm sure for him that would have been a better option than having to tell his wife that he got her pregnant. And Evelyn decided to end it with Herman. She had moved her family to the Amazon Cracker area in San Francisco, which is what I read is a good neighborhood. She wanted to settle with her sons and just have a good life. April, she was weeks away from having her baby in late April. You're packing your hospital bag, you're rearranging your house, you're going through your whole nesting process. You're anxious because you do not want to be pregnant anymore. You are ready to be holding that little baby in your arms and for all the discomfort to be gone. At this time, Evelyn was in contact with her sister because they were planning a baby shower. So they're finalizing all these details about this baby shower so she can be completely prepared when little Fernando gets here. On May 1st, she drops Alexis off at school. It's been reported between school and childcare. It could have been childcare that has a curriculum. It could have been actual school. It's been reported differently depending on what article you read. After Evelyn drops Alexis off, she goes to the ATM. She comes back later. I'm assuming she does some of her errands. She comes back and picks him up. The people at the school are the last people to see Alexis and Evelyn alive. The following week, 1 week after nobody's heard from them, Herman reports Evelyn missing. For me, this is weird because if they're not together, he doesn't want anything to do with this baby. How does he even know that they're missing? They could have still been in communication, but it's just weird that he's the one that reports her missing. At least it is to me. And initially, police didn't even treat this case like a missing persons case. They treated it as if she just walked away. They said things like, oh, she probably took her son and went and had the baby on her own. That doesn't make sense to me. You're 9 months pregnant. You have a baby shower coming up. You have family that is like they're near you because you're planning a baby shower together, but you just take your son and go have a baby by yourself. Who's going to watch your son even while you're having that baby? That just doesn't seem plausible to me at all. A few days after Evelyn is reported missing, they find Evelyn's wallet in a parking lot. Has $41 in it, has a disability check inside of it. The weird thing about where this parking lot was is it is very close to where the limo service that Herman works at is located. And it's by a gas station on the way to the airport where he worked. Could all be a coincidence. There's no way to know. Now, after 2 weeks, Evelyn's case is finally taken seriously. They finally say that they're missing people. I don't understand how you think a woman who's 9 months pregnant just up and takes her son and leaves and doesn't say anything to anybody. Though Herman is never, from what I can find, considered a suspect. Never. And we know in most of these cases, well, in all cases, the significant other or the ex you had right before you go missing is the prime suspect. So why Herman is not, I don't know. He's never really taken serious as a suspect. He's never questioned seriously as a suspect. You're starting to figure out what case I was referring to before, right? We'll get there. I promise we will. Evelyn and Alexis case seriously They don't have leads. They don't have any suspects. They really don't have any information. Finally, 1 month after Evelyn, Alexis, and her unborn son, Fernando, went missing, the police hold a press conference. And they give some information about the case. I feel like at that point it was too late. Because all the evidence that you could have gotten, all the witnesses that might have known anything, it's been a month. They might not remember what they were doing a month ago. Sometimes I don't. I don't remember if I saw something strange unless it was extreme. Or maybe it didn't seem strange. It just was something that happened in the day. A month is too long. It is far too long. There was a candlelight vigil held for Evelyn, Alexis, and Fernando. It wasn't ever covered. This lady and her 2 little boys were merely a blip in the news. I could not find very many articles written about them. And some of the ones I found weren't written until years later. And that's really sad. A whole little family disappears and nobody covers it. Nobody thinks that's important. Nobody thinks that's weird. We have to do better. In July, a torso washes up into the San Francisco Bay. The police run DNA tests on it, and on Labor Day of 2002, it is confirmed that the body is the body of Evelyn Hernandez. They didn't find the rest of her body. They didn't find legs, find her head. Alexis wasn't with her. They didn't find Fernando. Nothing. The coroner couldn't say whether Evelyn had given birth to Fernando before she died, whether he was taken from her womb, whether she died while she was still pregnant and she decomposed and his body separated from hers. They couldn't tell anything. And his body was never found along with Alexis's. So we honestly don't know what happened to them. They are still just missing. After the body was confirmed to be Evelyn's, another candlelight vigil was held. Still, no police. Police weren't there trying to figure out if the killer would show up. The news didn't cover it. It wasn't like other cases we saw or crime shows that we see. This was a community, a group of people, her family and friends, that only had each other to lean on. They couldn't lean on the police and hope that they were going to find justice for their loved one, because up until this point, it seemed as if they didn't care. And the media, who would normally be all over a case like this, was nowhere to be found. Herman Aguilera eventually got a lawyer, and he completely stopped cooperating with the police. I'm assuming that they started asking him some harder questions, even though they didn't announce him as a suspect or consider him a serious suspect. They probably started asking him some questions he didn't really want to answer, so he lawyered up and quit cooperating. Now, I have no issue with getting a lawyer. Even if you're innocent, you need a lawyer, because we all know that there are so many cases of people being wrongly convicted because they did not ask for a lawyer. They had nobody to counsel them, like, hey, you don't have to answer that, or you can't keep him there, or anything like that. They didn't know their rights, so they were taken advantage of. The case of Evelyn, Alexis, and Fernando went cold quickly. The police had no leads. They still to this day have not found either one of her boys. Her murder has never been solved. And I always hope that it may be solved, but the likelihood of that is very low. Unless somebody makes a confession or they find bodies of the little boys and there's DNA And still then, it could not be solved, depending if their DNA is in the database or not. Now, this case is similar, very similar to the Laci Peterson case. So similar. A woman in the San Francisco area who's pregnant, goes missing, her body washes up as a torso. It's super connected. Here's the difference. Laci's case was covered by every media outlet in America and even internationally. Like, this case is known internationally, is known everywhere. If you hear Laci Peterson or Scott Peterson, you know what case they're talking about. And it's sad that two women went missing 6 or 7 months from each other and nobody paid attention to the first. One of the biggest things, in my opinion, of why Laci's case was solved, other than her family being very adamant, being in the news, is everything Scott Peterson did was covered by the media. Everything. Every little thing that he could have thought to do was covered by the media. So every time he acted weird, every time he didn't mourn properly, because we assume people are supposed to mourn a certain way. Now, I'm not saying that the stuff he did wasn't weird, because a lot of it was weird and borderline inappropriate. The question, though, is, why did Laci's case receive international attention and Evelyn's couldn't even get local attention? Now, do not take anything I'm saying as Laci's case did not deserve international attention, because everybody's case deserves that. If you are missing or you are murdered, people everywhere should know about it, because the more people that know, the more likelihood that your crime will be solved. I'm saying everybody deserves that. How come everybody can't get that same treatment? So we can get all these cases solved. So family members aren't waiting years and still don't know what happened to their family. Evelyn's family still does not know what happened to her 18 years later. They never got to meet Fernando. Alexis' life was taken from them, and probably taken in general. It's completely upsetting and sad. We're now going to get into theory. There's a couple different theories. We'll get to probably what's the most likely one at the end. A couple of them are super weird, like super weird. At least this first one is. So the first theory that you can find online from like Reddit and stuff like that is people connect Evelyn's case with Laci's case, and it has been theorized that Scott killed Evelyn as a trial. He wanted to see if he could get away with killing Laci, so he killed Evelyn. When her body washed up and it wasn't connected to him, he assumed that he could do the same thing to Laci and no one would be the wiser. And then maybe he could also say, well, this lady, she went missing in a similar manner and I had nothing to do with that. Now, I don't really believe that. It doesn't sound logical to me. They have no connection. I mean, is it possible? Anything's possible, I guess. But I don't feel like it's likely. There's literally no evidence that Scott had anything to do with Evelyn's disappearance at all. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense. Second theory is, once again, those two cases are connected, but it was a third party. It was outside murderer that killed both of these women. I mean, this is likely, but that would also mean that Scott Peterson is wrongly convicted, which he keeps saying he is. I don't necessarily believe that. I don't believe that these two cases are connected, because I don't believe that Scott Peterson is innocent. His actions and the evidence that was presented does not show an innocent man. The jury did not see an innocent man. And just because he dated somebody doesn't make him a murderer, but his other actions on that day seem to support the fact that he was a murderer. And his actions after his wife disappeared and her body was found Those show a man who was not grieving, who was not mourning, who really didn't care that his wife was missing, that she passed away, or that their son passed away. Your first child, your son, what most men are so proud to have and can't wait for, a son, he didn't seem to care. Okay. The third theory is Evelyn was just killed. Evelyn ran across the wrong person on the wrong day, and they took her life and Alexis's life. It could have been the wrong person, as somebody was stalking her, somebody saw her and thought she looked vulnerable, or somebody wanted a baby. There have been multiple cases where women have kidnapped other women and killed them and taken their babies. And not all of them are always soft. That's a possibility. So sad if that's what happened, that you lose. It's sad, period, that she lost her life. But it's possible that she just was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's how her life came to a tragic end. And the final theory is that Herman had something to do with her death, which is, I just think it's weird that they never consider him a suspect. I think it's weird that he's the one who reported her missing. They never really looked into him. They never looked into his alibi. They never really investigated him enough to say whether he was a viable suspect or not. And that's upsetting, that this man could have gotten away with murder. He also could have been completely innocent. We don't know. And that's the sad part. We don't know, and we may never, ever know, because there's been zero movement in Evelyn's case. Sadly, guys, that is the story of Evelyn Hernandez and her sons Alexis and Fernando. Really appreciate you joining me for my first official YouTube video on our True Side of Crime channel. If you've never listened to our podcast, please go ahead and find us. All the links below where you can find the podcast. You can find me on Facebook. I have a page, and we have a True Side of Crime podcast group. I am on Instagram, and I am on Twitter. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, click that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you're alerted every single time I post a video. My videos will be posted every other Monday, opposite of my podcast, which also is posted on every other Monday. Thank you so much. Continue to be the awesome, beautiful people you are. Until next time, guys.